Have you ever felt like your brain is a leaky bucket? You spend hours pouring information in, only for it to just disappear before the big exam. It is honestly one of the most frustrating feelings ever. Well, today we are going to fix that. We're going to talk about how to transform those old study habits into powerful, science-backed techniques that actually, work. Man, this coach just hits home, doesn't it? It doesn't matter if you're a student or a teacher, we've all been there. You put in the work, you feel like you've got it down, and then poof, it's gone. This really gets to the heart of the problem we're tackling today. Our brains are practically designed to forget things, and they do it way faster than we think. But here's the good news, okay? This isn't some personal failing. You're not bad at learning. It's a completely normal, totally predictable feature of how our memory is wired. And because it's predictable, we can learn how to work with our brains instead of constantly fighting against them. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's meet the main villain of our story, the forgetting curve. This was first described way back in the 1880s by a psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus. He created this model that basically maps out the sad, steady decay of our memory over time. It's the scientific reason for that in one ear and out the other feeling we all know so well.
And this chart really shows you just how brutal it is. Look at that. After just one day, you can lose about half of what you learned. A week later, you might only be holding on to a measly 10%. It's a tough pill to swallow for sure, but knowing this is our starting point for fighting back.
So the big question, how do we actually beat this forgetting curve? Well, it all comes down to one massive shift in how we approach studying. This right here, this is the turning point. It's the single most important idea for learning effectively.
And here's the showdown. On the left, you've got passive review. This is what most of us do. Rereading notes, highlighting pages until they're neon. It feels productive, right? But the knowledge just fades away super fast. Now on the right, you've got active retrieval, sometimes called the testing effect. This is all about pulling information out of your brain. It feels harder, yeah, but that little bit of struggle, that's what actually forges the memory and makes it stick.
And you don't have to take my word for it. Here's the proof. A huge study back in 2011 found that students who used active retrieval remembered 50% more information after a week. I mean, think about that. That's not just a tiny improvement, that's a complete game changer. That's the difference between failing a class and passing with flying colors, all from one change in technique.
All right, so we know active recall is the strategy, but what are the actual tactics? How do we do this? Let's open up the toolkit and look at 3 practical, evidence-based techniques that will help you put this whole idea into action.
First up, we got to manage our focus. Enter the Pomodoro technique. This is really about managing your energy. You work in these short, intense 25-minute sprints, and then you take a break. This stops you from getting mentally exhausted and slipping into that passive, zoned-out studying mode. And those breaks are crucial. Studies actually show they can cut down on fatigue by about 20%, making sure the time you spend studying is actually high quality.
Okay, tool number 2 is our direct counterattack on the forgetting curve. It's called spaced repetition. The idea here is actually pretty simple. When you review information is just as important as how you review it. So instead of cramming everything the night before, you strategically space out your study sessions over time.
And this is kind of what it looks like. You review something, then wait a little longer before you review it again, and then even longer the next time. See how the gaps get bigger? This forces your brain to work just a little bit harder to find that memory, and that effort is what strengthens it, lodging it firmly in your long-term memory.
I absolutely love this because it takes this big idea and makes it so practical. A Reddit user came up with this system they call a retrospective timetable. So instead of planning what you're going to study, you just track what you've already studied and, importantly, how well you understood it. This gives you a bird's eye view of your weak spots so you know exactly what to focus on next time. It's a genius real-world way to do spaced repetition.
Okay, now it's time to put all the pieces together. These techniques are great on their own, but they're not meant to be used in isolation. The real power, the real magic, happens when you combine them into one solid, repeatable system that works for you. But before we build a system, let's talk about some universal ground rules. These tips are often mentioned in the context of neurodiverse learners, but honestly, they are superpowers for any brain. Breaking big projects into tiny chunks, that reduces overwhelm. Having a dedicated study spot, that tells your brain it's time to focus. And of course, taking care of your body, sleep, food, all that stuff, that's totally non-negotiable for your brain to perform at its best. So here's the game plan in action. You start small. Just commit to one 25-minute, totally distraction-free session. That's it. You're not trying to conquer a 3-hour marathon.
You're just starting one single Pomodoro. It's easy, it's manageable, and it gets you over that first hurdle of just starting.
So what do you actually do in those 25 minutes? Active recall. Don't just reread the chapter, no! Grab some flashcards, try to work through a problem without peeking at the answer, or even just explain the concept out loud to your dog. Force your brain to do the work of retrieving the information.
And finally, you close the loop. After your focus session is done, you pull out your retrospective timetable or whatever you're using to track things. You jot down the topic and how you felt about it. A simple action like that sets you up for the future. It tells you exactly when you need to review that topic again. It basically puts your spaced repetition on autopilot.
All right, as we wrap this up, I want to zoom out for a second, because this is about so much more than just a few study hacks to get you through your next exam. This is about building a skill that is going to serve you for the rest of your life. The ultimate goal here is to become what's known as a self-regulated learner. Now, that sounds a little fancy, I know, but all it really means is that you're in the driver's seat of your own education. You understand your own learning process. You know how to plan, how to check in on what's working and what's not, and how to adjust. You become the architect of your own knowledge.
And that's really the big idea here. The confidence you get from knowing you have a system to tackle any complex subject, that is priceless. This isn't just about getting better grades. It's about feeling empowered and capable in anything you set your mind to. So I'll leave you with a little challenge. Think about how you study right now. What is one small, passive habit you have, like just rereading your notes or highlighting, that you can swap for an active one this week? Maybe you make a few flashcards instead. Just start there. That one small change is the first step to truly studying smarter, not harder.